there. You found yourself on another edition of Locked On Bulls. On today's episode, we're going to talk about what should the Chicago Bulls be prioritizing ahead of the draft, shooting or rebounding. Also, Coby White, second place in most improved voting last season. Is he somebody the Chicago Bulls should look to build around? And the unfortunate passing of Chet Walker. We'll look back on his Hall of Fame career. All that and more coming up.
You are Locked On Bulls, your daily Chicago Bulls podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for tuning in to another edition of Locked On Bulls, member of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. It's your boy Pat the Designer back at it again. And today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use the code all lowercase LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. Now, Chicago Bulls, there's draft talk everywhere. That's really all we have to look forward to with this team, it seems like. What's going to happen in the NBA draft? Are they going up? Are they going down? Are they going to stand pat? Are they going to take somebody at 11? Who are they going to take? Are they going to draft somebody too early? Are they going to draft somebody too late? Don't know if you saw the latest, but Zach Edey's moving up draft boards out here. Somebody check on Hayes. But I think the real question that we really need to lock down, and I want you guys to let me know in the comments below as well, is what should the Chicago Bulls be prioritizing? Now, of course, with some of the trade options that we've had, it opens things up for the Bulls to get both. But what is the thing that the Chicago Bulls need most? Is it the shooting or is it the rebounding? And I'll throw rim protection in there as well, right? Because you're assuming that a big is the one that's going out there and rebounding the basketball. So are you prioritizing the shooting aspect of it, or are you prioritizing going out there and getting you somebody that could be a big down low, be a rim protector, and get the ball away? And I think this is really the root of the question for the Chicago Bulls, because you look at last season. I mean, offensively, there's a lot to be there's a lot left on the table offensively for this team. And of course, right, it does come down to, is Billy Donovan the reason that some of this is getting held back or not? But your offensive rating right now is 114. That's how you finish the season. That's 19th in the NBA. At the three-point line, the Chicago Bulls took 11.5 three-pointers per game. That is tied for 26th in the NBA. And your rebounding percentages were not terrible. I mean, your offensive rebounding percentages, which is a very important one, was 29.1%. That's 11th in the NBA. Could that improve? Yeah. And I think here's the tough part about a lot of these numbers that I just threw you guys' way. It's also situational, right? We've seen the Bulls be a team that can accomplish whatever they set their mind to at times. We've also seen the Bulls be a team that can't figure out how to get out of a brown paper bag. You know what I mean? So I think that it is very interesting when you kind of look at the pros and cons of both sides of this team. You look at the age that's on some of these guys as well, as far as your bigs on this team. Of course, 30 plus for Vooch. You're also looking at 30 plus for DeMar. So there's a lot of factors that play into it as you head into this draft, right? The biggest thing for me, though, is that number of the Chicago Bulls being tied for 26 in three-point attempts per game. And my problem with that is that you feel that your team is either one of two things. One, either so bad offensively that you can't go out there and shoot the three ball, that you can't prioritize shooting the three ball because you don't have enough people that can do it, or you just feel like the three ball is not a valid weapon for the modern NBA. And I can't believe that the Chicago Bulls are dumb enough to feel that way. And so I look at the other side of this and say, you feel like there's not enough people on your team that can go out there and knock down the three. And I would almost be inclined to agree with you in the sense of it. I don't think that top to bottom, at the beginning or an end of your team, you've got, three-point shooters everywhere. You've got guys that take threes, but I don't think you have three-point shooters everywhere. And that to me is something that gets you into the type of NBA that is winning right now, the type of NBA that you can go out there and be successful with. That doesn't mean that you don't prioritize rebounding and defense, but I do think that with some of the pieces that you have on this team right now, and of course, if trades happen, this could change. But if you're talking about going out there to war defensively with a healthy P. Will, Io DeSumo, at Alex Caruso, I guess you could throw Drum in there if he's not having foul trouble, right? You've got some guys who are known for defense on this team, is my point. Torrey Craig, right? You could throw him out there. You've got some guys who are known for their defense. Those same guys you don't look at and go, oh, yeah, he's going to be able to go out there and get a bucket. I think Coby White fits that. Coby White's an okay defender, but he is not an elite defender. And so you kind of look around and go, he's more on the shooting side. Okay, how many guys do we have that you feel like are a strap? All right, Coby White, a healthy Zach LaVine. You start to get a little quiet there, right? You start to think about guys a little bit more. Io DeSumo can shoot the three, right? He's got that ability. He's somebody that can knock it down. Torrey Craig can shoot the three. In theory, Leroy Carter, Javon Carter can shoot the three. You've got a bunch of guys that can shoot it, but who are the guys that you sit there and go, nah, if the ball's in his hand on the three-point line, that's going to be knocked down no matter what. And I think that's what really why I look at shooting to me is the biggest priority that the Chicago Bulls need to focus in on. And I think there's some guys that are really, really good at it in this draft. I mean, we talked about Dalton Connect. If you're going to trade up for anybody, find a way to get him in a Chicago Bulls jersey, right? Because I think he'll end up being probably a top 8 player with his offensive ability. But I believe that you have a team right now that is falling behind in the modern era of basketball. I've said this many a times. You're trying to run a 2006 style of offense in a 2024 basketball league, and it's just not going to work in your favor. You're going to have things that end up not working out for you. And so I think the Bulls really need to try and address ways to get into the modern era of offense. And I'm not saying you got to go out there and be number one shooting, excuse me, shooting the three ball. Almost had a heart attack right there. I'm not saying that you got to go out there and be the team that shoots the most threes in the NBA. I'm still here for the efficiency. I want to see the Bulls be efficient. I want to see the Bulls find a way to get stuff done. But what I do want them to add or get stuff done at a efficient level, right? But what I do want them to add is guys who do think when the ball touches my hand, I'm going to let this thing fly. And I want that to be the mindset of the young players that are coming through the system. Now, I want that to be Dalen Terry's mindset. I want that to be Julian Phillips' mindset. And I think the Bulls want that to be the mindset because they did go out and add a shooting coach last year, right? We saw Peter Patton come into the building. He was supposed to change Chicago Bulls shot profile. It looks very similar. Well, guess what? I can't change the shot profile on a team of guys that really can't go out there and knock down a three ball on a consistent basis. I think to me, that's more important to getting you to whatever this next step is for the Chicago Bulls than going out there. And not to say you can't prioritize defense at the rim, not to say you can't prioritize a big that can go out there and grab you, 15 boards a game, but you do have guys who can go out and rebound on this team already. You've got Andre Drummond. Now, if you were to re-sign him, that'd be kind of tough at this point, but if you let guys walk, you can keep Drummond around. You've got Nikola Vucevic, who, not the greatest rim protector, but is still a solid rebounder on this team. I'd be willing to say, you know what, we're not getting the answers we're looking for there just yet, but we can wait on those answers to try and address something that we desperately are in need of changing. And to me, that's the shot profile and the three-point attempts of this Bulls team. Let me know how you guys feel in the comments below. I'll be down there talking with you as well. I think there's some really good names. And I'll say this. I think there's some names that kind of fit both. But, right, when you look at a guy like Kyle Filipowski turned himself into a little bit better of a rim protector, definitely could put up the tray ball, definitely could put the ball on the floor. Not the best rebounder that I've seen, right? Not the guy that I would go out there and say he's the one that's going to get you 10 boards a night, but does have that offensive ability, does bring some of that size. Maybe you can work him into that. Maybe working with Vooch, he can figure out some tips of the trade that can improve his rebound. He's not a horrible rebounder. He just kind of gets moved around every now and then, right? So there are some bigs in this draft that you can play with that kind of address both needs, and maybe that's the route you go. But I'll say this, you need to come out of this draft with an answer at something. So whatever player you take, and I'm going off of the scenario that you're just taking one guy. Of course, the trade up and trade down scenarios are there, but right now we have the 11, and we can't expect AK to say, you know what, I'm going up to 3. This is what I'm going to do. I don't expect that at all because I just don't believe that we haven't seen him be that level of aggressive since he signed everybody here. And I don't know if all of a sudden he's just going to turn back into that guy where he's like, boom, here we go. Aggressiveness out the wazoo. We're making trades. We're moving up in the draft. We're adding multiple young pieces. I would love to see that, but I don't know if that's going to happen. So I'm operating out of the mindset that you're just utilizing the 11th overall pick. And I think there will be players, more so to me, that at 11, you'll be able to say, what does this guy do well? He shoots, and he shoots at a really nice volume. Okay, maybe that's our best option here because that addresses something. All the other guys are, and listen, you got to develop your young guys, but all the other guys to me are pieces that do they address things? Sure, but they don't come in where you go, I'm confident that he's going to address that. They more so to me come in as, when you look at some of the Filipowskis, when you and not to say I don't think that he would be a phenomenal player on here, but I don't think he addresses rebounding. Right. I think that he addresses maybe some of your shot making, some of the things like that from the 3-point side, and you get a little size with him. Maybe that would work in your favor. I think Donovan Clingan is a guy who, a little bit up and down with the rebounding, but I think he's absolutely the rim protector you're looking for. And so I wonder what the Bulls are really looking to utilize, really looking to prioritize coming into this season, coming into this draft, I should say. For me, though, excuse me, my excitement right now would be going out and addressing the shooting position, having a guy that can play off of Coby and knock down the 3 ball at a similar rate that he can. And speaking of Coby, we got to talk about Coby because you're adding pieces onto this team. Can you build a team around Coby White? We'll talk about that coming up because I think that seeing him as the most improved player, I should say the second place most improved player, and looking back at his season, maybe there's a case for it. We'll talk about that coming up next. But first, we got to tell you guys all about Prize Picks. What is Prize Picks? I mean, listen, it's only America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 5 million members. It's the most fun and exciting way to get in on action while you watch your favorite sports and players. You just pick more or less on 2 or more players' stats for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. And I mean, listen, this episode's brought to you by Prize Picks, where you can turn $10 into $1,000 in a single game watching your favorite sports this summer. You can make Prize Picks lineups in as little as 60 seconds. You just need to go to pick more or less on 2 to 6 player projections, and you're locked in. I mean, here's the thing about it. Like I said, the finals mean more on Prize Picks, and so do the star players. You get boosted payouts on select basketball stars that you won't find anywhere else. When the finals are over, hoops action doesn't stop on Prize Picks. Women's basketball is just getting started with young stars like Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese looking to make names for themselves alongside greats like Stewie or Asia Wilson. You can win up to 100 times your money waiting for them to ball out. Optionals that are available in June, which is where we're at right now. I had a stroke right there. I know somebody gonna say that in the comments. There's always action on Prize Picks in June, especially though, is the perfect time to get in on something new. Make sure you try out esports this month as well, because for every Wednesday and Saturday in June, if your lineup doesn't win, you'll get your entry fee back. Choose from Counter-Strike 2, Call of Duty, League of Legends, and more. Check it out right now at prizepicks.com. You can download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for the first deposit match up to $100. Download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks. Pick more. Pick less. It's that easy. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of Locked On Bulls. Remember the Locked On Podcast Network. Pack the Designer still here. And I got a question for you, because we saw a very improved season out of Coby White last season. It's a young man who, listen, absolutely turned up when he was given the opportunity, when the reins were put in his hand, played the most games that he's played of his career, played the most minutes by far that he's played of his career, averaging 36 minutes per game, played through a little bit of injury in the second half of that season as well, but got himself from the previous season. Now, he's had high scoring seasons before, or higher scoring seasons, I should say, but the previous season coming off of 22 minutes per game, 9.7 points per game, 2.8 assists, 2.9 total rebounds. To this season, 19 points per game, finished with 5 assists and 4.5 total rebounds. But the offense really moved in the right direction this season, especially that 3-point shot, as he was able to get it up to 37%, shot 37.2 season before, but that was on 4.6 threes per game, got that up to 37% on 7 threes per game. So more 3-pointers, being able to knock them down at a higher clip. Listen, can you build a team around Coby White? And to me, this is a twofold question. Can I build the championship Chicago Bulls around Coby White? Probably not. Coby would have to take a very big step. I saw the video with him and Dribble Too Much working again. I love the fact that he's working on his body. I love the fact that he's working on his handles still. Not he's not to the point where he's like, oh, well, I got my handle good, so I'm going to just go out here and do this on my own. I figured out the drills. No, he's going back to the coach that got him on par to actually, take that next step and help him, and he credits him very much. So working with him again, but there'd have to be a pretty massive step heading into next season. And what I mean by that is you'd have to go from being a 9-point per game player to a 19-point per game player. And for the long term, you've got to add another 6 points to me. Players that you build around are 25-point per game minimum players, I believe, in this NBA. You don't sit there and say, I'm going to build around the dude that's able to put up 18 unless he's giving you 10 assists with it, right? And that's usually how this league has a tendency to go. But you've got a young Coby White at 24 years old, still a lot of time, still a lot of career left for Coby White. I know people feel like, he's probably older because of how long he's been in the league, but still incredibly, incredibly young. And you have an opportunity to, or what you would have to see out of him if he were able to make that next step, you would have a long time to be able to do that. But that step would have to be massive for the long term. But I don't think that's the decision you're looking to make today, because realistically, in the situation that Chicago Bulls are in right now, you're trying to figure out, okay, are we bringing back DeMar DeRozan? How are we trading Zach LaVine? Because it seems like that's going to be the tone for the future. What the heck is Nikola Vucevic doing? Are we keeping Andre Drummond? What's this bench going to look like next season? You're trying to figure out all of these other things that have to happen. And because of that, I do think you can head into next season building a team around Coby White. That does not mean that your long-term plan is built around Coby White. You can do things in short spurts and do things in long spurts. That's crazy. Don't worry about that. We'll move past it. I'm so glad Hayes ain't on this episode. But realistically speaking, if I'm looking at Coby White and the growth that he had this season, he's the kind of player that I think that you can build around in the short term, and that you're still looking for that other star while he keeps this team afloat. And I think that's what he was able to do in limited time last season. But I believe that now, coming into this season, if you were to say, you know what? We've got this young guy. We're trying to figure out what the heck he is. Ayo Dosunmu also took another step with him. How about we give him the pieces to succeed this season? We figure things out this season around him. And in the long term, yeah, we can look for that star. We can try to find that guy that's going to be the superstar. Hopefully he becomes that. But if he doesn't, we're still looking elsewhere. But right now, I'm going to give him a team to put on the floor that he can go out and compete heavily with. I think that building your team in that manner helps, because then you get guys that come to a team where, yeah, you're the rook and maybe there's another player there. But if you're the better player, right? I think back to, right, Kevin Garnett coming to the Minnesota Timberwolves, right? J.R. Rider's there. Kevin Garnett, of course, everybody expected him to be the better player. Everybody expected him to be the next level. Everybody expected him to be the best of the best, everything that he turned into. But Isaiah Rider was already a heck of a player. Isaiah Rider was already going up against Michael Jordan. He had already figured out, okay, this is how I move. This is my game. This is what I need to do. And when Kevin Garnett showed up, it wasn't, hey, this is J.R. Rider's team. It was, okay, I'm going to learn the ropes. I'm going to figure things out once I get my game. Everybody knew it was KG's team. So we can't sit here and say there's going to be this power struggle if Coby White is if you try to build around Coby White right now. I think that the goal right now is to try and, at least for AK, remain competitive. The goal right now is to try and go out there and win as many games as possible and maybe be able to find something out of Coby White. But the long-term goal does not have to be tied to Coby White being the face of this Chicago Bulls team. And I think that's why, to me, it's kind of a twofold question. Heading into next season, I don't think you have an option but to build around Coby White. I'm sorry. If you start next season and your roster looks the same, there needs to be a conversation that we get Coby White the ball, Coby White does what he does, and everybody plays around him. That conversation needs to be had because you saw growth on a team that hasn't seen growth since AK got here. You have to nurture that. Look at what it did for Ayo Dosunmu. Look at what it did for Patrick Williams in some limited spurts this season, right? Now, does that mean Coby White is the perfect piece to build around? Absolutely not. His inconsistencies are still there. I think he'd tell you that his inconsistencies were there in the second half of the season. Had to go through some injury and was fighting through that and was playing through that. But I think he would even tell you there were some inconsistencies in the second half of that season. Heck, his last 2 games of the season, you're talking about a guy who went out there in the first game and scored trying to see where is this is last. Oh, this does not include playoffs. Let me see if I can find. I want to say he scored 42 and then like the final game of the season 13 versus the Miami Heat. Those inconsistencies can't happen. Yeah, here it is. 42, 9-6 versus Atlanta. Atlanta, horrible defense. Absolutely destroyed them. Bulls in the playoffs. Kumbaya. Here we go. Oh my God, there's so much exciting. But they got to beat the Heat to get in the playoffs. I'm sorry, they're in the play-in, but they got to beat the Heat to get in the playoffs. The next game, 36 minutes, 13 points, 2 free from the 3-point line, 2 rebounds, 4 assists, 1 steal. The inconsistencies are still there. So you have to find a way to kind of work those out of your game. Now, if he gets to a point where he does, maybe he is a piece that you can build around long term. But I think what AK needs to focus on right now is how do I put the best team around him while adding in a rookie to this team? Because here's the thing, that puts you in a better position when you get that guy. That puts you in a better position where you start looking around and you go, oh, okay, we just drafted this rookie probably in 2026 because I would assume that you're not going to have this pick in 2025, but we'll see. But in 2026, all right, we're in a little bit better of a position here to go out and assess the draft. We've got a pick here at 11 or 12, whatever it is, and we've got a really good player that we've identified here. We think that he's going to be the next face of the Chicago Bulls. Boom, you add him to a team and you do essentially what the Chicago Bears have done, which I think is a great thing, is you don't put the pressure on the rookie to be the greatest player of all time the second he steps on the court. We've done that in the past, and at times it's worked out, right? Derrick Rose, it worked out. Were there vets there? For sure, but you kind of were like, Derrick, go. You know what I mean? But I think that this season, or when you get to that point, right? When you get to the time when you have a draft pick, how you built this out and how you've set things up, you can kind of do that future building. You can kind of do that. Okay, we're here right now, and yeah, it's not great, but let's remain competitive. Let's build a team that has a lot of fire. Let's build our culture. Let's figure out what the heck the culture is in this building. And then on the other side of this, we go out there and we add the piece that we think is going to be the face of this franchise into that. We let him grow at his pace. Once he figures out, KG talks about it. He said it took him like 25 games to kind of figure out what worked for him and what didn't. And once he figured out what worked for him and what didn't, boom, all of a sudden he's ready to go. You still got Isaiah Ryder right there. You've still got a heck of a team around KG that's going out there and has an ability to compete. That, to me, is the way that the Chicago Bulls should look at this thing when you're talking about building around Coby White. Coby White's a really good player, but you do have to kind of take in you have to take everything with a grain of salt because of the inconsistencies and because you don't know if he's going to take that next step. You may get 19 points per game Coby White again next year. 19 points per game, Coby White. I love it. Let's keep him around. Let's figure this out. But you got to find somebody else who's going to take that next step or is going to be the star on this team. And you just don't have that right now. We got to talk about one more thing before we get up out of here. The unfortunate passing of Chet Walker. We will be talking about that coming up next. RIP to the great legend Chet Walker. The Chicago Bulls wrote this on Twitter. We are deeply saddened by the passing of Chet Walker, a legendary figure in our team's history, an inductee into the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame. Chet left an incredible mark on the court in the hearts of fans during his 6 seasons with the Chicago Bulls from 1969 to 1975. The team never missed the playoffs. He was a 7-time NBA All-Star and an inaugural member of the Chicago Bulls Ring of Honor. His skill, dedication, and contributions to the game made a lasting impact on the sport of basketball and the city of Chicago. We extend our heartfelt condolences to his family, friends, and all who were touched by his legacy. Chet will forever be remembered as a true Chicago Bulls icon. Very good by the Chicago Bulls on that 1940 to 2024 for Chet Walker. He passed away at 84. And listen, I know that many people don't take the time anymore to go back and look at the people of the past, but these were guys that my dad never stopped talking about. So I got opportunities to see a lot of these guys' highlights and different things like that. And Chet Walker was somebody who, when you watch this tape to me, you never felt like he was the most athletic player on the floor. You never felt like he was the I guess I'd say the fastest, but when you talk about a guy who was able to go out there and be efficient on the basketball court, when you talk about a guy who was able to go out there and be an absolute surgeon on the basketball court, many seasons here in Chicago, 3, as a matter of fact, of his 6 seasons here in Chicago, averaging above 20 points per game. Remember, this is in the 60s. That's a big chunk of the offense back then, right? Always available to play. Excuse me, as far as a shooting threat, I mean, he was inside the paint, an absolute surgeon. You know what I mean? He was somebody who pump fake, boom, down low. I mean, if he the one takeaway that I'd say that I got from Chet Walker was, and he always had this move, he comes down left side, pump fake, gets you in the air, easy, boom, bucket, right? Tyson Chan, I watch him, I just go, Tyrus Thomas would have like died. Like Tyrus Thomas would have been getting cooked on a consistent basis. Chet would have averaged 50 versus Tyrus because he would have jumped him out of his Nikes with a half an eyebrow fake. Unfortunate to hear of the passing of Chet. But I thought that, what better place than Locked On Bulls to talk about him? An absolutely true Bulls icon. Like it said, they had never missed the playoffs for Chet. Led the Chicago Bulls to the Western Conference Finals where they faced the Los Angeles Lakers. Didn't end up winning that one, but did go in there. And I mean, listen, somebody who, if you don't have that beginning, especially back then, right? We may not become the Chicago Bulls that we are today. Teams were getting moved around left and right back then. It was a different NBA, and now you're at a time where everything is solidified. But the fact that Chicago basketball is still here, the fact that Chicago basketball is still a major part of this market, I think that Chet Walker plays a big part in that. And he was one who my dad always talks about cutting the tickets off of the milk carton and going to Bulls games down at the old Chicago Stadium. So prayers up to the family, prayers up to all the friends, prayers up to all the Bulls fans who got to watch him and possibly lost one of your childhood or adult icons tonight. And I mean, listen, we will remember him well here on Locked On Bulls. We'll remember the legacy, remember the dominance that we saw here in Chicago. Appreciate you guys for tuning in and showing love, though. Hit that like button, subscribe to the page, leave that 5-star review. Y'all know what to do. You can follow me on everything at Pat the Designer. You can follow us both on everything at Locked On Bulls. Hey, stay safe out there, Chicago. One love. See red. Peace.